It's October the 27th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. Well, it's pouring raining here in South Carolina today, and I don't really have any other option but to film up here on the porch. I can't film down there, of course, because of the rain, and my kids are home today, and I just didn't want to have to stop them from what they were doing to film today's video, because they're actually sitting down there right now, laying on the couch, watching TV. And I'll get into why they're home today here in just a minute. If you read the post that I put up yesterday afternoon, kind of, you know, saying I'm sorry for not having a video up and giving a little bit of an explanation of what happened. We ran into some pretty scary stuff yesterday. Last Monday was my birthday, and we went up. My wife kind of threw a little, like a surprise birthday party for me at a Mexican restaurant. My whole family showed up. We all had dinner together. And that night, my brother was sitting right beside me, and he asked if I wanted to go on a camping trip with him and his kids. And of course, I was like, well, yeah, heck yeah. Originally, we were going to go not this past weekend, but this upcoming weekend that we're about to come into right now. But he said that he couldn't do it, so it had to be this past weekend that we just went on. And I said, okay, although I was extremely tired, we've been doing so much here recently. My wife wasn't very excited about it because, you know, the kids were tired, I'm tired. She's like, I just don't think it's a good idea. But, you know, I didn't know when the next time was going to come up where I could go do something like this with my brother. I haven't done anything like this with him and his kids in a very, very long time. I mean, it's been like a year since I've camped with my brother, done anything like that. So I really wanted to jump at the opportunity, just to go hang out at the lake. We were only going about an hour away. We went to Thompson, Georgia, to a place called Big Heart Campground. It's right on Strom Thurmond Lake, or Lake, gosh, what we call it here in South Carolina. It's Thurmond Lake here, but they call it something else in Georgia. I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, it's that lake. Basically, the Savannah River feeds into that lake. And we were on the Georgia side, down in Thompson, Georgia. Like I said, it's a little over an hour away for us to get there. And, you know, I told my brother, yeah, let's go on a camping trip. I thought it'd be really cool. So Friday, we were getting everything together to go out of town, and I was, you know, rushing around trying to get everything finished, and, you know, we had to get the kids and all that stuff. And I put a video together, and there was no sound on it. I was just rushing, and I put it all together, had it posted up on YouTube, went to watch it, and there was no sound. And then Saturday I did a video, and we didn't have any internet. I could not get it uploaded. I started to upload that video at like 3 o'clock on Saturday, and it was still trying to upload when I woke up on Sunday morning. So I just had to delete the upload, and then I came home yesterday afternoon and finished uploading the video that I did on Saturday. So that's why that video, I said the date for Saturday, but it got posted up yesterday. That's why I just didn't have any internet to get that video posted up, because we were at the lake. I thought that we would have service, no problem. And, you know, I used my hotspot on my mobile device, well, on my phone. I just turn on hotspot and use my computer to upload the videos. And I usually don't have a problem, but this weekend it just would not work. But anyway, let's get into the meat of today's story. And today's story is really, it's a very frightening story. It happened to myself and my kids yesterday on our way home. And I'm just going to go ahead and start off today's video and just say this much, that I am so glad that I am sober right now. Had I not been sober yesterday when this event occurred, it would not have turned out the way that it did. There's just no way. Had I been drinking this past weekend I would have been super hungover yesterday on my way home. And I would have been so hungover that I would have had anxiety so bad. First of all, I don't even know if I would have been able to drive on the interstate like I was doing yesterday, which might have worked in my favor, because I would have taken back roads, and it might not have been such a bad situation, but that's not what happened. And, you know, I can't change the past. It is what it is. But once again, had I been hungover yesterday, I do not think that things would have transpired the way that they did. And I'll just go ahead and get into it. Like I said, I went camping with my brother this weekend. And when he invited me, we were going to originally stay in his camper, all of us together. But I got a friend of mine who's got a pop-up camper, and I was like, I'm going to borrow his. I'm going to see if he'll let me just borrow it. That way we don't have to either sleep in a tent and sleep on the ground, or all of us are all jammed up in my brother's camper. So I contacted him. He said yeah, so I was like, awesome. We had already had another campsite right beside the one that my brother had. So if I wanted to put a tent up, I could. It was like $60 for the weekend, so we just went ahead and got 2 sites. That way, if I wanted to bring a tent and sleep on my own side, I could, or I could stay in my brother's camper or whatever. But it ended up being that I was able to borrow my friend's pop-up camper for us to go down there, so we could just stay in that for the weekend. You know, got the pop-up, got loaded up, got the kids, and we started heading out. I met my brother and followed him down to the park that day. On Friday, it took us about an hour and a half or so to get there. Traffic was pretty bad. We didn't leave until like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something. I don't remember what time it was, but it was right at the time when rush hour traffic's happening. So, you know, we got stuck in some pretty bad traffic going down there that day, but you know, no problems. Everything was honky-dory. We got to the campground, had a great time this weekend. My kids got to hang out with their nephews. I had a good time hanging out with my brother. We cooked a bunch of food. Everything was just great. And then yesterday morning, you know, I was going to sleep in and let the kids sleep in, but my youngest son had already gotten up around like 8 o'clock or something, and he started packing his stuff. He was ready to go hang out with his cousins a little bit before we left. So I was like, all right. So I woke my oldest son up. We packed everything up. And I told the kids, you know, I want to make sure that I've got the camper hooked up to the back of the Jeep and everything's ready to go. And then we'll go down to my brother's campsite and hang out with them until it's time to leave. And when it's time to leave, we're already hooked up, camper's hooked up, put away, and we can just go and leave and go home. I just had to go drop the camper back off before we went home that day, which is a little bit out of the way, but, you know, no worries. So we got everything done, and when I went to hook the camper up, this is where I made my mistake. The way that the campsite, it was a pull-through campsite, and I had to back the Jeep down into where the pop-up was parked at, and I backed it up, and when I backed it up, I had to turn the Jeep at a hard angle to get the hitch lined up properly. And when I did, I turned the Jeep at a pretty hard angle, got out. My son said, "You're good." You know, I had him directing me. I got out, hooked up the ball to the hitch, hooked up the safety chains, hooked up the wiring, all that stuff was good to go. And then we went and hung out at my brother's place. After we were done hanging out over there, I told him, okay, we're about to leave. He was getting ready to go, and, you know, we both left right about the same time. I mean, I pulled out, and he was leaving right behind me. And the way that we went home yesterday was on the interstate. We had a pretty long drive, about 27 miles that we had to go down I-20. If any of you guys are familiar with I-20, it goes all the way down to Atlanta. Very, very busy interstate. And like I said, I had to get on I-20 from Thompson, Georgia. It was basically right at the very end of Washington Road. And then I had to get on 20 and then go all the way up 20 to get to where I had to be, you know, back to my home. And we got on I-20, and right before we went to get on I-20, something my gut was telling me, and this is one of those things that I always say on here, trust your gut. When your gut is telling you something, trust it. Don't, you know, push it to the back of your head and say, I'll worry about that later, or something like that. And yesterday was a perfect example of why you need to trust your gut. Because right before we got on the interstate, something told me, pull over at one of these gas stations and get out and double check that hitch and make sure it's on that ball properly. And I didn't. I was in a rush. I was ready to get home. I was tired. I just wanted to get back to the house and get that video uploaded. I wanted to take a shower. I hadn't bathed all weekend. It's a long story. There was only one bathhouse. The place stayed packed the whole time. There wasn't any time for me to bathe. Every time I went up there to take a shower, there was somebody in there. So I hadn't had a shower. I just wanted to wash. You know, I was just ready to get home. And once again, I didn't trust my gut, and I got on I-20. As soon as I got on I-20, I realized, like, man, this is going to be a pretty sketchy ride home. You know, just driving on the interstate, first of all, just gives me anxiety to begin with. You know, you got 18-wheelers driving around, cars driving crazy, everybody's fighting to get past you. It's just nuts. And you know, I'm a country guy. You know, I'm not fond of cities and big interstates, and I just don't like it that much. You know, I've lived in the country my whole life, and it gives me anxiety. But as soon as we went to get on the interstate, like I said, I could tell that it was going to be a very, very, very busy interstate yesterday. And not only am I driving on the interstate, but I've got a camper on the back. And I don't pull stuff that often. I just don't. I really haven't done a lot of pulling in my lifetime. I mean, we used to own a pop-up camper years ago, and we pulled it all over the place, but it's been a long time since I pulled anything too. So you know, it gives me anxiety pulling something, especially down the interstate, and something as big as a pop-up like that. It just sketched me out. But I got on the interstate, was driving down the interstate, you know, everything was going fine. My oldest son had fallen asleep in the passenger seat. My youngest son was in the back playing on his tablet. I was, you know, in a really good mood, just happy that everything had went well and everything worked out. And we were just on our way home. And we got to a section of I-20. It was about 7 miles away from the South Carolina-Georgia border. I remember looking up at the GPS and seeing 7 miles to the border. And right there, right at that 7 mile marker, there's a way station. Right before that way station, maybe a mile before that way station, the road starts getting really bad. There's these big bumps like this that go like this in the road. Just very, very scary. Like I said, we got to a section of I-20 where it was just these big dips in the road, like really big dips. You know, I'm going down and the Jeep would just drop down in it, and then when I would drop down in it, then the trailer would drop down really hard. And there was so much traffic all around me. Everybody was pushing, trying to get going. And I was going about 70 miles an hour, probably somewhere around there. I didn't want to go any faster than that, but I wasn't trying to slow everybody else down in the process. I was going too fast, first of all, and I should have double-checked that ball. The crazy thing about this is while we were hooking up the trailer yesterday morning, my oldest son said, as we were hooking it up, because I was trying to show him how to do it. And when I was hooking up the safety chains, my son said, "What are those for?" And I said, "That's for whenever, if in fact the trailer pops off the ball, it keeps the trailer connected to the vehicle. That way it doesn't just go flying off into the traffic and cause an accident." I said, you know, the one thing about safety chains is you hope that you never have to use them, because it is sketchy. And I told him a story about, he asked me, has it ever happened to you? And I said, it happened to me one time. And this happened when I used to have my business. I was leaving my house one day. I used to have a big trailer that I pulled behind, a big enclosed trailer that I had for my business. And I was leaving my house one day, and when I went to leave, we've got these big hills here on our driveway, and I guess I dropped down just enough that the trailer popped off the hitch. And I tried to lift the trailer back up, put it back up on the ball, and when I tried to lift it up, I heard my back pop. My lower back, it went pop, 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 and I just hit the ground. Was rolling all around on the ground. I hurt my back so bad. I messed my back up for like a solid month from doing that. And I told my son, like, I really messed my back up. I hope something like that never happens again. It was very, very scary. I was by myself. And then we're driving down I-20, you know, 70 miles an hour. We start getting in these areas, the Jeep's jumping all around like this, and then all of a sudden, the trailer popped off the hitch. We are surrounded by cars all around. There's an 18-wheeler right beside me in the left lane. I mean right beside me. And the trailer pops off. It's back there going like this. The Jeep started going like this. It started making us fishtail in the middle of the road. I thought right then, we're gonna get an accident. Like, this is about to be very bad. Like I said, the Jeep is fishtailing all over the place. The trailer's back there jumping everywhere. I slowed down. I pulled off on the side of the road. The trailer is back there dragging on the street. I can hear it just dragging across the asphalt. When I went to pull over, there was guardrails on the side right there, so I could only get over but so far. But I had to pull over right there. I could not keep pulling that trailer like that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, let me get pulled over, and we're going to get this thing popped back up on that ball, and I'm going to get to somewhere safe so I can take a look at this and get it straightened out. Well, I got out of the Jeep. I'm about a foot onto the highway. I tried to pull over as far as I could, but I could not fully get off the interstate. The Jeep was off, but the trailer was still hanging out in the road a little bit. I just couldn't get it any further. Mind you, I'm pulling the trailer with just the safety chains, and when I went back there to go look at it, one of the safety chains had broken. So there was only one safety chain left holding that trailer to the Jeep. The other one had broken off, so there's only one safety chain, and the hitch is just laying on the asphalt, and I dragged it for probably about, a couple 100 feet down the road. It is all bent up. The metal underneath of where it goes onto the ball, like if this is the ball, the hitch part that goes over the top, the bottom of it, like underneath right here, all of that is just completely scratched off. Like it's been like wore all the way down. Like the metal, was probably, 3-4 millimeters thick. It wore it down to maybe 0.5 millimeter thin at the bottom. I mean, it really took a lot of metal off of it, and it bent the hitch, the cover for the ball. It bent that part up, and the piece that sits inside of it that you like crank down that tightens up on that ball, there's like a little piece that slides down. That had gotten jammed up into the hitch, and I couldn't get it to drop back down to tighten up, which was later on. I got to finish telling the story. But when I went to lift up the trailer, when we finally got it up, it would not sit down on the ball. But back to what happened, I pulled over on the side of the road, trailer's hanging out about a foot onto the interstate, and cars are flying by. And I don't mean like one or two here or there. I mean like zoom, 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 just one after another. 18-wheelers, and these guys are within inches of hitting us. I told both of my kids, get out of the Jeep right now. I walked back to the back really fast and took a look, and when I did, I saw that the hitch was laying on the ground. I went back there really quick and tried to lift it myself. It wouldn't happen. So I went over to the passenger side of the vehicle and told both of my kids, get out of the Jeep right now. My oldest son got out of the driver's side, the passenger side in the front, and then my youngest son, when I told him to get out, I'm standing in the back. On the passenger side with the back door open, yelling at my kids to get out of the car because I didn't want somebody to hit us and they're still in the vehicle. I wanted to get them out and get them standing over by the woods in case something happens, they're clear out of the way and they could run for safety. When I told them to get out, my oldest son just hopped right out of the car. My youngest son opened up the passenger side door, and guys, when I say that we were within inches of being hit, when he went to open that door, an 18-wheeler was coming right by. I screamed, and I just jumped through the Jeep and grabbed him by his shirt and pulled him back. There was a cooler sitting right there because I had laid down one of the seats in the back and had the cooler sitting on top of it, and I had my toolbox sitting right there as well. I grabbed my son and I pulled him over that toolbox and over top of my cooler and yanked him out of the Jeep. Told them to go, I told my youngest son, go stand over by the woods. My oldest son came back there with me. I said, I need your help. And the two of us tried to lift the trailer back up to put it back up on the ball. And when we both tried to lift it, instantly my back cracked. Pop, 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 pop. My very lower back. I dropped down to the ground, started rolling around on the grass on the side of the interstate. I couldn't stand up. When it happened, it took the breath away from me. It hurt so bad, guys. It's the second time this has ever happened to me. I've never really had any back injuries in my life. Nothing really that major. This time, though, I really messed my back up. Like I said, when I went to lift it up, I wasn't using my legs. I wasn't thinking. We're on the side of the interstate. There's cars zooming by. I'm just trying to get the hitch up on the ball so I could pull up just farther enough to get up to that entrance to that way station, and I was off the interstate. But my oldest son and I tried to lift it. When we tried to lift it, my back popped. He hurt his back. He's over there screaming, my back hurts. I hurt my back. And I'm like, what are we going to do? So I tell my youngest son, come over here really fast. He runs over, and all three of us try again to lift it up, to no avail. We cannot get the trailer lifted. And all I'm trying to do is get it lifted up high enough to drop down that little, there's like a little jack that sits on the trailer that's got a little thing that you can turn, and you can pop it up, and it's got a wheel on it so that you can move your trailer around. All I was trying to do was lift up the trailer just high enough so I could drop that little arm down, and then I could crank it up and get the trailer to lift up high enough to sit on top of that ball. We tried. We could not get it up high enough to get it up on that ball. We just could not do it. I didn't know what we were going to do. My son's going, Dad, we're going to have to call somebody. There's nothing we can do. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm about to just leave this camper here. And it's not even mine. You know, what am I going to do? This thing's just, it's going to get smashed. I knew it was going to get destroyed. But I was like, who cares? Screw it. All I want to do is make sure that my kids are safe. That's all that matters to me. That's, you know, I can replace that, but I can't replace my children. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, what can we do? And I didn't want to cause an accident and have somebody else get hurt because I left that trailer there. All I needed to do was get it just out of the way. And I just needed to get it lifted up high enough to get it so I could get that wheel. Like I said, there's a wheel underneath that little jack. So if I could get that lifted up, I could pull that trailer out of the way far enough so that nobody would wreck into it. And just so happened, as I'm sitting there trying to figure this out, I told my kids to go back over towards the woods while I figured this out. And I'm standing there. The Jeep is still sitting there in front of the trailer. And I look over, and there is a 2x6 laying on the side of the interstate, just laying there in the grass. Half of it's cracked and broken, but it's a viable piece of wood. I should have saved this piece of wood and brought it home and like hung it up on my wall or something, because that piece of wood saved our life yesterday. I really believe so. I grabbed that 2x6, put it on the ground, put my foot on it to put enough weight to see if it could handle you know, being used as a lever for the camper, and it was strong enough. So I told both of my kids, come over here really fast. They ran over to the camper with me. I put the 2x6 up underneath the hitch of the camper, and all three of us took that and used that 2x6 as a lever, and we were able to lift the camper up just enough. And I told my oldest son, run over there real fast and drop that arm down, and he was able to. My youngest son and I held that 2x6 up and held the camper up while my oldest son ran over there really fast, pulled that pin, and dropped that arm down, and the camper was finally sitting up on that wheel. Instantly, I said, y'all go back over there now, get away. I cranked up the jack really fast, got the thing lifted up just high enough, and I got it to sit on top of the ball, just barely. Like I said, the lock mechanism for the trailer hitch was jammed up in there. I could not get, the metal was bent, and it had that piece jammed up in there, so I could not get it to drop back down. It wouldn't budge. But at this point, I've got the ball sitting on there just barely enough, and I've got that arm dropped down with that wheel, and I still had the one chain hooked to it. I was able to, I told my kids, y'all run over there to the woods, and then they ran down the side of the woods to where I was at. So I pulled the Jeep about up 200 feet on the side of the road up the way station ramp and got us out of harm's way from the interstate. As soon as I got that trailer out of the way, I dropped down to my knees and just prayed to God, thank you. You know, that at least now I've got this out of the way. I don't have to worry about somebody wrecking into it and hurting themselves. And I know that we're out of harm's way. And if anything else, I can leave it there and I can figure this out tomorrow, later on that day, whatever. But it's out of the way and my kids are safe and we can go home. But I was like, I'm going to give this at least a college try before we leave. I am going to attempt to fix this. Luckily, I used to be a Boy Scout and I am always prepared. Always. I'm one of those guys that always has too much stuff on me. You know, my wife always gives me a hard time because she's like, did you really bring all that stuff with you? And I'm like, you never know. Yesterday was one of those moments where being prepared saved us. I had my whole toolbox in the back. Well, my tool bag with all of my tools, like very important tools. I know which tools I need, if I was to run into some sort of a situation. I even grabbed my impact wrench and a box of half-inch sockets to bring along just in case. You never know. You might have to take a wheel off, or you just never know. Well, yesterday, that was the situation. I grabbed my tool bag out, went to the back, started hammering on the hitch, grabbed a pipe wrench, and was able to get that wedged up into the hitch to bend the metal back just enough so I could get that piece, that locking mechanism inside of there to move a little bit. And then I took the impact wrench, put a socket on it, put it up on, there's a bolt that's inside of there. I hit that bolt a couple times, loosened it up, grabbed some WD-40, sprayed it in there, kind of had to bend a little bit more metal around, get things situated, but I got it to where that locking mechanism would move again, and I could get it to move back and out of the way so that I could put that hitch back over top of the ball. And guess what? After I did that, we took the trailer, we pulled it over there, we slid it up on top of that ball. It sat there for a second. I jumped in the Jeep. I pulled the Jeep forward because it wasn't quite right in the right position. I thought, let me just pull the Jeep forward. And when I pull it forward, it's going to pull that ball, because it was sitting like this. And I said, all I got to do is just pull it like this, and it's going to lock on that ball. And sure enough, guys, I got in the Jeep, put it in drive, pulled forward, and I heard the trailer pop down. And any of you guys that pull trailers, you know that when you pull forward and, it drops onto that ball, you can feel it. And I felt it drop down on that ball. I jumped out of that Jeep so ecstatic, ran to the back, and sure enough, the ball was, the hitch was secured on the ball. I put the locking mechanism over the top, locked down the ball, double-checked it, triple-checked it, quadruple-checked it. It was locked on there. I put the little pin through the lock to make sure that it couldn't open back up just by wiggling around. And then my next dilemma was I only had one safety chain left, and there was no way I was driving down the road again and not having another safety chain. What had happened was just one of the links had broken off that other safety chain. So I'm like sitting here trying to figure out what am I going to do, and I happened to look on my tool bag, and on one of the straps had broken on my tool bag a couple months back, and I took one of those chain link. It's got like a screw nut on it, and you can open up the link, and then you can put it on a chain. I had one of those links with the nut on it that I was using on my tool bag to hook that belt back on so I could put it over my shoulder. I said, this right here was not coincidence. I did that just for this reason. I looked down, saw that on the side of my tool bag, and thank God again, took that piece off, was able to put that link back on the chain, was able to rehook the chain to the back of the Jeep. We had the ball sitting back on the hitch again, and we had both safety chains hooked up, and we were safe. Was there any damage to the camper? Oh yeah. Brand new battery that was just put on there got completely smashed. And the only thing I can think is what happened is when the ball came off, when the hitch came off the ball, it dropped down, and the chains kept it from going too far up underneath the Jeep. But what ended up happening is because it dropped down and hit the ground, and those chains kept it from going too far. But the ball on the back of the Jeep was protruding, and when that trailer slid up underneath the Jeep, it hit that propane tank on the front of the camper, and it hit the battery, and there was like a metal bar in between the V of the hitch that got bent too. So it messed up the propane tank. I'm sure the propane tank's still fine and usable, but the battery got destroyed. It was a brand new battery, just got placed on that too. Broke the case for it, busted the battery. And like I said, it bent that metal bar, and the hitch is destroyed on the front. So I'm gonna have to see about getting somebody to come out and cut that metal hitch part off and welding on a new one, or however they do it. Maybe they can cut it off and bolt a new one on. I really don't know what they do. I'm sure it can be repaired, but that's what happened. The whole time we were standing on the side of the interstate, I was so afraid. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I have never been that afraid in my entire life, ever. And I wasn't afraid for my life. I was afraid for my children. We're standing on the side of a super busy interstate. Camper that's poking out on the side of the road. I needed their help to get it back on so that we could get that thing into safety. When my youngest son opened up that door, it's like life flashed in front of my face, like instantly. It's I can't even explain it. But it's like I saw it happen, and I just reacted and just jumped into the Jeep like Superman. I mean, both of my feet were off the ground, and I grabbed him so fast. My heart was beating so hard. I had to like drop down to the ground after that happened and like take a second and catch my breath because it scared me so bad. I was so horribly frightened yesterday. I can't even explain it. It was a really traumatic experience. It scared me really bad. But the point to all this is that had I been drinking this weekend, had I been hungover yesterday, or had I been even, and there, like I said, if I was still drinking, if I had drank all weekend, I would have woke up yesterday morning and started first thing. I would have already been a few beers deep by the time that we had gotten on the road. Had I been drinking yesterday, who knows how that would have turned out. And I can almost guarantee you that it would have turned out really, really bad had I been drinking yesterday. I am so blessed that I was sober dealing with that situation. I was able to think. I was able to think quickly. I was able to think clearly. I was able to direct my children. I was able to stay calm. You know, I remember when I sit there and think about it, I can remember almost every second of what happened yesterday and in slow motion. And all I remember saying over and over and over again to my children was, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. They were so afraid. I just kept telling them, guys, it's going to be okay. We're going to work this out. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. I was just trying to keep them calm through the situation until I got everything situated. And like I said, I got them out, got them standing over by the woods. If something would have happened, it would have been just me. And I swear to you guys, while I was dealing with this yesterday, I thought to myself that I might not ever talk to you guys ever again. I was thinking to myself, this might be it. And somebody, my wife might be posting up a video and letting you guys know that I passed away because of this. And I really thought that in that moment when I was trying to get that camper back on that Jeep and I was standing over there, that this might be it. Somebody's going to be looking down at their phone. Somebody's not going to be paying attention. Somebody's going to be looking the other way. And they're not going to see the camper and they're just going to smash into it. I mean, it happens every day. And by the grace of God, we were not hit and we were able to get out of there. And I was able to get home safely yesterday with my children. And, you know, I'm so thankful. I'm so blessed that things worked out the way that they did. It was such a frightening event that went down. And I am so thankful that I was sober yesterday. Because it would not have turned out the way it did had I not been. It would have been a horrible situation had I been drinking yesterday. And not to mention, had I been drinking, you know, even if I, you know, was on the side of the road and we were okay, there's no way I would have been able to get that camper back up on that hitch. There's just no way. And at some point, the police would have pulled over because I was on the side of the road. And I would have gotten a DUI. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, we stuck out like a sore thumb. I'm sitting in the road. I don't know how a cop didn't stop, you know, while we were on the side. We were there for half an hour yesterday trying to get everything situated. And still couldn't figure it out until I finally saw that 2x6 and was able to lift it up. I started thinking to myself, I guess I gotta get a jack out. You know, I could get the jack for the Jeep out, maybe crank that up, and I was just about to get that out when I saw the 2x6 over there. Now I do have a farm jack that I keep on my Jeep too. You know, one of those really big jacks. They're called something else. I can't remember what people call them. I know them as a farm jack, but there's something else they're called too. It's those really big jacks that you see on the back of people's Jeeps. A lot of times people mount them on the back right beside their spare tire, and they stick up really tall. But a lot of times they're red. Mine's red. And it's basically got a big handle, and you crank it back, and it lifts stuff up. You need them for lifted Jeeps because standard jacks won't lift it up high enough. And you can use them as like a come along and things like that too. They're very useful when you're out four-wheel driving. And I had mine. It's strapped up to. I've got racks on the top of my Jeep, and I keep it up on top of the Jeep strapped down. I could have climbed up there and gotten that off, but it would have taken me a second to get that down. Which I need to figure something out to make that a little bit easier, more convenient to get to in case of an emergency situation like yesterday. Because had it been on the back of my Jeep and I could have popped it right off, I could have taken that farmer jack, put it underneath there, cranked it up. We could have had that trailer lifted up within minutes. But once again, I don't have the mount on the back of my Jeep. I need to buy one. Now I know I need to get that thing mounted up on the back of the on the Jeep so it's more easily accessible for situations like that, because that's what you have those jacks for anyway, is to get out of sticky situations. And if it's not in a convenient location to get down, it doesn't make any sense to have it. So I learned my lesson yesterday. I need to stop being cheap and just go ahead and get one of those mounts to put it on the back of the Jeep so it is easier to access. But you live and you learn, and I learned yesterday after dealing with that. But the point of today's video is, number one, I wanted to tell you guys what happened to me yesterday and happened to my children. It was a really very scary situation. I just wanted to tell you guys that story because it happened. After I posted up the video yesterday, I was so tired from all that happened yesterday. I laid in my bed and went straight to sleep. I woke up around midnight last night for a little bit. My wife said that I had been talking in my sleep. I was having nightmares. She said I was talking about the incident, so I guess I was having nightmares about what happened. I don't remember it. She just said that I was in the bed, talking in my sleep and moving all around. And she woke me up at one point and asked me what was going on. I said I was dreaming about, having a nightmare about what happened. And I don't even remember saying that. But I do remember waking up around midnight last night, and I was laying in the bed, and I just kind of woke up. And you know how you wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and just stare at the ceiling. I woke up in the middle of the night last night and just started thinking about the whole situation, and it started playing back in my head as I was laying there in the bed, and I just burst out into tears. I was just laying there in the bed. I just started crying. I woke my wife up, and she said, what's wrong? And I told her, I can't believe that happened, and it scared me so bad. I've never been so afraid ever in my life. Had it have been just me, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Yeah, it would have been scary, but it would not have been as scary as it was because my kids were there. And all I kept thinking was, I've got to keep them safe. And it was just such a bad situation. I didn't really have a lot of options other than tell them to go run over and stand on the side of the woods, on the side of the interstate. And I know they were so afraid, the looks on their faces. My gosh, they were so afraid. And, they had to come over and try to help me lift that trailer up. And my oldest son hurt his back. My youngest son hurt his back trying to help. We all hurt our backs. They stayed home from school today, because their backs hurt. They don't feel good. I mean, they're sore. So I told them yesterday, if you guys don't feel well, you can stay home today. And my wife woke me up this morning before she left to go to work and said the boys are going to be here today. And I said, okay. And both of my kids have not budged. They've all been laying down all day long today with heating pads on their back. Both of them say their backs hurt. I feel horrible that happened. And it's ultimately all my fault because I did not follow my gut. Once again, when your gut tells you something, listen to it. Whatever it is, listen to your gut. We have instinct. We know when things need to happen. Listen to if your gut tells you don't go there, something sketchy is going to happen, or, you know, don't do this, you know, you're just like, something's telling me not to do it. Don't do it. And, or if something's telling you, I need to check this, or I need to do something, whatever's going on, it doesn't matter. If you might be a minute later, that 1 minute might save your life. Whatever it is, go double check it if it's bothering you. Pull over on the side of the road and check your boat and make sure that it's hooked up the way it's supposed to be, or, you know, whatever it is, go double check. When something's telling you, you think that you might have left a candle still lit at your house, and you're on the way to the grocery store and you're sitting there going, my gut's telling me to go back home. I know that candle's still lit. Turn around and go home and check. If it's blown out, great. If it's not, then you just kept your house from burning down potentially. So number one, like I said, trust your gut. Listen to your gut when it tells you something. I'm telling you, I talk about it all the time, and anytime I go against my gut, it's a mistake. And second of all, let's stay sober today, guys. Like I said, had I been drinking yesterday, that situation would have turned so bad. I don't even want to think about what would have happened had I been drinking yesterday. And if I had, and something would have went wrong, I would have went to prison. I wouldn't be able to deal with myself had something like that happen. And I'm just so glad that I'm sober today. And I was sober yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. I hope that each and every single one of you out there watching this right now are staying sober as well. And if you have slipped up and drank, no big deal. That was yesterday. Or if you slipped up and drank today, no big deal. Try again tomorrow. If you've got 374 days of sobriety and you slipped up and drank yesterday, those 374 days are still there. They didn't go anywhere. You didn't just throw it all down the toilet. That's 374 days of damage that didn't happen to your body. 374 days of damage that didn't happen to your relationships. It's 374 days of you living your life sober. And it's not easy to do so. So, you know, hang on to that. It's still there. And don't beat yourself up too bad. You know, alcohol is such a powerful substance. It truly is. And it tricks us. It fools us in the beginning. And, you know, it works in the beginning. You know, it calms you down, makes you feel good, you know. Makes you feel great after a long day of work. You can relax, especially after a bad day. But then it gets to a point where it stops working. It gets to a point where it's taking a half a gallon of vodka to get you where, you know, 2 beers used to get you 3 years ago. We build up a tolerance very quickly to alcohol. And but like I said, before you know it, you're drinking a half a gallon every single day. And when you get to that point, you're drinking that much, you are causing so much damage to your body. You truly are. Let's stay sober one more day, guys. I know that you can do it. You know, these types of situations, like what happened to me yesterday, they happen. And it happens on a day when you least expect it to. You think everything's going to be fine. You wake up that morning, go to work, and you're on your way home, and one of the wheels falls off or something. Stuff like that happens every single day. To thousands of people, probably millions of people every day. Serious stuff happens like that. And if we're drinking or using in the middle of one of those situations, we can't think quickly. We can't think clearly. And then on top of it, you know, you're intoxicated. The police show up, something like that, you're going straight to jail. They're going to smell it, and they're going to know immediately that you've been drinking. And then before you know it, you've got a DUI, you lose your license, you're paying thousands of dollars worth of fines, and SR22, and let's stay sober one more day, guys. One more day. I know that you can do it. I believe in each and every single one of you. Like I said, I just wanted to hop on here and tell you guys what happened to me and my kids yesterday. It was a pretty scary story, and I'm just so blessed to be here. I'm just so thankful that everything worked out yesterday. And I'm so thankful that I was sober again, yet one more day. So, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I know today's videos are already probably like 45 minutes. I've been rambling on and on and on. But I wanted to tell you guys the whole story. And there's still parts that I left out. I just don't want to make this video 3 hours long. So anyway, once again, thank you so much for being here today, guys. I really do appreciate it. I'll be back every single day this week. I'm not going anywhere else. That's it. I am completely done. I am so exhausted from all things that we've done here recently. I cannot do anything else. I've got to rest this week. And I'm not doing anything else for like a month or two. And we've got the holidays coming up and everything as well, so it's going to be Thanksgiving at my family's house, and we're about to be doing a lot of family stuff, so we're not going to have time to go do anything anyway. So anyway, once again, thank you so much for being here. I will see you guys all tomorrow, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I love you guys so much.